appreciation for anything. And when we can do that, very, very quickly, this signal from the heart to the brain shifts, and you're seeing that becomes a very rhythmic, very even, very coherent signal. This is what it's called. And it sends a different signal to our brain, and our brain begins to release a different chemistry into our bodies. Now, I'm saying this to you now because I want you to know that your brain cannot do both things at the same time. It can only do one or the other. So when you are in coherent feeling and that even rhythm, that's what awakens your brain to send powerful healing chemistry, powerful immune response, powerful anti-aging hormones, awakens your senses, turns on the gamma. Okay, and when you are in the rough, jagged signal, that's fight or flight. Your body and your brain are saying, something important is happening. We've got to run or fight, so we don't have time for healing. We don't have time for an immune response. We don't have time for anti-aging hormones. They're not important. So it shuts off those functions in preferential treatment of this fight or flight. So for this reason, you can see why fight or flight is good momentarily, don't want long term. We can shift these brain states very, very quickly. And what I'd like to do now is I'm going to share a technique with you to help to do this. We can measure this conversation between the heart and the brain electrically. And it is a very low frequency. So this isn't an esoteric essence of prana or aura. This is an electrical and a magnetic frequency. And the electrical part is a very, very low frequency. It is 0.1 hertz. It's not even 1. 0.1 hertz. This is such a low frequency, you can't even hear this. It is right on the threshold between feeling and hearing. It's a frequency that whales use to communicate in the oceans. So it's a very universal frequency. It's also a frequency that military submarines use to communicate in the oceans, which is why it's a problem for the whales when they use it. And it is the optimal signal to harmonize your heart and your brain. So what this means is if you can create a feeling in your heart of 0.1 hertz, then that feeling is going to harmonize your heart and your brain. Now, in indigenous traditions that I've been with, they have techniques to do this. The Institute of Heart Math that I mentioned in the last episode, they have refined these techniques in the laboratory into very, very simple steps that make them accessible in our everyday environment, whether we're in an urban environment, whether we're in a military environment, a first responder environment. This technique is being used in all these environments that I'm mentioning now, in family and marriage and family counseling environments, in cardiac environments to help deal with blood pressure and cardiac events that are happening within our bodies. So there are a vast and myriad number of applications for the one technique that we're going to do right now, and this technique is the doorway for all the potentials that we've just listed. By achieving heart-brain coherence, it opens the door and we get to choose. It's like once we're in this place, now we can do this, 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 or this. We can do subconscious, we can go into intuition, we can simply use this technique before we go to bed at night to begin to sleep and trigger a healing within our bodies. We can do it first thing in the morning. We can do it before our yoga. We can do it before our martial arts. We can do it before our qigong, our healing practice, any of these things, because everything goes better with heart-brain coherence. That's all we're doing, is we're optimizing the conversation between the heart and the brain, between your heart and your brain. So, how do we do this? 3 steps. The first step is to simply shift your awareness from your mind into your heart. And what I found is in the Western traditions, for many people, that's easier said than done. I'll ask people, are you in your heart? And they'll say, yep, I'm in my heart. But what they are really doing is they're still in their brain thinking about what it would be like if they're in their heart. This is where the indigenous traditions come in. Our ancestors told us, and when I spend time with my indigenous friends, I say, how do you guys do this? And they say it helps if you can gently touch your heart center physically in a way that's comfortable for you. In the Mayan traditions, you see an open palm right on the heart. In many of the Middle Eastern traditions, you see the same thing. In the Buddhist traditions, you see a prayer mudra that physically touches the sternum. The key is, any of those things creates a gentle touch physical sensation right over the heart center, and your awareness will always go to the place where you feel the sensation. That's the key. So if you can create a touch over your heart, your awareness will go there. First step. Second step, very simple. Slow your breathing a little bit slower than typical, maybe 5 seconds inhale, 5 seconds exhale. Here's why that's powerful. Because the only time you would ever slow your breathing and breathe in that way is when you feel safe. When you feel that you're in a place that's safe, that you're not threatened, and you're not vigilant of your surroundings. So you're telling your body you're in a place that's safe. Slow your breathing. Third step, and this is the key, is to begin to feel the feeling that creates 0.1 hertz. Feel the feeling that sets up the coherence between your heart and your brain. How do we do that? I gave it away earlier. We've already mentioned it. Scientists have found, at the Institute of Heart Math, their researchers have found that there are 4 key words that work almost 100% of the time for everyone. Appreciation for anything or anyone. Gratitude for anything or anyone. Care and compassion. If you can feel one or some combination of those feelings in your heart while you're breathing as if your breath is coming from your heart, touching your heart center, now you're setting up this communication between the heart and the brain. Now you are triggering those neurons to begin to reach out and find other neurons to strengthen this connection. And that's why I mentioned before, it takes about 72 hours, 3 days to build these networks. So that means the more you do what we're about to do right now, the stronger this connection becomes in your life. Let's try this. Let's go through this together. And this is the way we're going to close out our segment today. I'm going to invite you first to shift your awareness from your mind into your heart by gently touching your heart center. And once you're there, breathe a little slower than you typically would. 5 seconds inhale. 5 seconds exhale. And as you breathe, feel your breath coming from your heart. Begin to feel those feelings. Compassion, gratitude, care, appreciation. To the best of your ability. To the best of your ability.